H-U-N-biased. Hunbiased.
Hi, thanks for coming by. My name is Mark and Hunbiased is my little channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about Trianon and about those omelette-shaped bumper stickers that you can find anywhere here in Budapest or outside of the Hungarian capital. Every nation has something it looks back on with pride and other events that it remembers with sorrow. For Hungary and some Hungarians, not all of them mind, Trianon falls into the latter group. Trianon, unless you're a real Hungophile, is that a real word? Probably not. Or are a World War I buff or someone specifically interested in treaties, this likely means nothing to you. But here it's a big deal. And even if it's not a big deal to a Hungarian, the country is still paying a heavy price for what transpired in a pavilion in France almost a century ago. The Treaty of Trianon still casts a long shadow over Hungarian life, the Hungarian psyche, and even Hungarian politics today. So what exactly is it, and why is it so important? According to Wikipedia, the Treaty of Trianon was the peace agreement of 1920 to formally end World War I between most of the allies of World War I and the Kingdom of Hungary. It was called the Treaty of Trianon because it was signed in the Grand Trianon, a small castle built by Louis XIV close to Versailles. Signed on the 4th of June 1920, the treaty came into effect on the 31st of July 1921. The Treaty of Trianon, which from now on I will simply call Trianon, rewrote the borders of Hungary, and for some reason singled out Hungary for a punishment that no European country has experienced over the last 150 years. As you know, World War I ended with the defeat of the Central Powers by the Entente Powers. On one side you had Austria-Hungary, the Kingdom of Germany, Ottoman Empire, and the Kingdom of Bulgaria. On the Entente side, meanwhile, you had members of the Triple Entente, namely the British Empire, the Russian Empire, and the French Republic. They were joined later by other nations, including the United States. Austria-Hungary was the constitutional union of the Empire of Austria and the Kingdom of Hungary that existed from 1867 to 1918, when it collapsed as a result of defeat in World War I. As the name suggests, it was made up of Austria and Hungary together. When the armistice was declared on the 11th of November 1918, it left in its wake the biggest human toll mankind had seen. They called it the Great War for a reason. Versailles was chosen as the venue for the discussion of the terms of surrender. The Hungarian delegation was led by Albert Apponyi, aka Count Dr. Albert Apponyi de Nagyapony, a Hungarian nobleman, diplomat and politician. It's hilarious that his name has de in it, because after 1956, when many Hungarians fled communism and headed west, it was common to change their name to something, and countless Hungarians added either a fon or a de to make themselves sound more noble. But anyway, Albert and his beard went to Paris in 1920 to represent Hungary in these discussions. But immediately it became clear that there was not going to be any discussion. Instead, as Austria and Hungary had already split, Hungary was going to be given a set of terms and then they were going to sign. That was it. There was no negotiation. And what happened? For Hungary, a disaster. For its neighbours, it was a bonanza. And why? Because not only was the Kingdom of Hungary forced to pay reparations, that's not a surprise, but the borders of Hungary were going to be redrawn, drastically, brutally. This is how Hungary looked before. This is the shape you can see on bumper stickers around Hungary. This is the Kingdom of Hungary pre-Trianon. And this is how Hungary looked after Trianon and how basically it looks today. That's a big change, isn't it? Hungary went from having a coastline, a short one mind you, but a coastline nonetheless, to being landlocked. It went from occupying an area of over 125,000 square miles to just 36,000 square miles. Or in another way, it lost 72% of its land area. While that was brutal enough, Hungary also lost all the people that live on these lands, and those people lost their connection to Hungary. While not all of them were ethnically Hungarian, for over 1,000 years they had all been Hungarian. The population was slashed from a pre-Trianon population of 20.9 million people to a post-Trianon figure of 7.6 million people. That's only 36% of the population. The other 64, they would now become something else. Punishing a country like this is unheard of, cruel as well. The way it happened meant that it could never be reversed. Just look at World War II. Germany was split into East and West. This meant that later on, should they choose to, they could reunite, which they did. This didn't happen for Hungary. Instead, the land was carved, sliced and diced and given to its neighbours who staked their flags and made their claim. The main beneficiaries of this were the Kingdom of Romania, Czechoslovakia and the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes, or Yugoslavia. And if you look at the western border, you'll see that Austria also gained land from Hungary. Austria, the country with which Hungary waged and lost the war, its other half. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that unfair? Yes, on both counts. But these are just numbers. To put it into perspective, if Trianon had happened to the United States, this is what the country would look like. This is America pre-Trianon, and this is an America post-Trianon. All that would be left is Texas, California, Montana, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, and Oregon. Everything else would be part of Russia, or Canada, or Mexico, or Cuba. Let that sink in. It's a big deal. I've spoken to people here before about it, and there are two main schools of thought. One goes, it was a long time ago, so let's just get over it. The other is that there's nothing we can do about it, so why go into it? Honestly, it wasn't so long ago. It preceded the Holocaust by 20 years, and while you can't compare either with anything, the Holocaust is never far out of our memories. So as a Hungarian, I have no reason to just forget about it. The other thing, that there is nothing we can do about it, so why bother? Well, perhaps that's right. I don't for a second imagine that Romania or Slovakia or Austria or Croatia or the Ukraine will ever give the land back without bloodshed. I'm not naive, and I'm also a Gone with the Wind fan.
That's the only thing in the world worth working for, worth fighting for.
However, as time has passed and communication, trade, and everything has made the world smaller in a figurative sense, it's not just the land that's important. Not really. Being drawn and quartered proved to be a disaster for Hungary and for the Hungarians now cut off from their country. We've seen the pictures of North and South Koreans meeting on the border one day a year and crying. Well, Trianon was like that, but worse, much worse. Neighbouring countries, specifically Romania under the commie dictator Ceausescu, did a very good job at swapping out the local populations. They forced the now ethnic Hungarians to move elsewhere for work and shipped in Romanians to populate what were previously Hungarian communities. It was a disaster, a horror. As Winston Churchill said, ancient poets and theologians could not imagine such suffering which Trianon brought to the innocent. This brings me to those bumper stickers you see so often around Budapest and Hungary. Whenever I see them and I'm with a local, I always hear them tut-tut and then say what Nazis they are. And I don't understand why. What is wrong with me saying that I haven't forgotten about the Hungarians outside the borders of present-day Hungary? It's almost as if I'm supposed to care more that if Hungary was to return to its older borders, which it never will, then Romania, Slovakia and the others will be inconvenienced. It's weird. Here in Hungary, it's a topic that you're not supposed to broach, because it's not considered proper or something. I would like to say that you're not supposed to talk about this because, like in Asterix, when the topic of Alesia ever comes up, the mere mention brings up horrible memories and people literally storm off in a huff. But I think that the real reason is because the map of this larger Hungary often appears on Jobbik supporters' vehicles. So the automatic assumption is that if you bring this up, you are a Jobbik supporter and basically an evil Nazi. Well, I'm not, and I'm not. But back to the facts, and how Trianon is still affecting us today. At the turn of the millennium, there was a change in tack in Hungary. Specifically, Fidesz, the party that is now in government, decided to push for a referendum on whether or not ethnic Hungarians living outside of the borders of Hungary should be given a passport. Hungary, as it usually is over any political debate, was brutally divided. One side said yes, as this would be a way of sort of reversing what had happened to Hungary as a result of Trianon. Okay, we wouldn't get the land back, but we would have arguably the more important thing, namely the people. It could also be seen as an act of recognition, that those Hungarians who had been cut off, specifically their descendants, have not been forgotten. That Hungary was still here for them, that the family of Hungary would welcome them back into the fold again with equal rights and so on. The other side pushed for a no vote. The opposition put up posters like this one. It reads, "Let's not pay a price for dual citizenship. We don't want to pay 20,000 forints a month from our family's money. Let's not pay taxes and pensions for others. Let's not pay with our jobs for those who will work for far less and who live outside our borders. Let's not sacrifice our dreams as our standard of living falls." At the bottom it reads, "Dual citizenship is not a solution for them, but it will make our life much harder." This poster was endorsed by none other than the Socialist Party, the MSP. Another reason to vote no, they said, is that if these Hungarians get citizenship, they will all come to Budapest. Our life would be harder, they'd work for less, and we can't afford to have them here. Does that sound familiar to you? This is the exact opposite of the political message being pumped out today by the very same people. So what happened? Well, a majority of the population voted to give them passports, but due to a low voter turnout, the legislation did not pass. It was another 6 years, 2010, before Hungarians outside of Hungary were given passports. And what happened? Hardly any of them came here. Our jobs weren't taken from under us. Those pushing the no message turned out to be completely wrong. Yet this is something Hungarians have chosen to forget. Selective memory is a wonderful thing. What it achieved is to prove to the Hungarians living outside of Hungary that the socialists in this country did not want them as part of our extended family. And this is something that they didn't forget in the last election, with less than 10% voting for those parties that were against them getting citizenship. This all connects to today, because now that Hungary is a transit point for a seemingly never-ending stream of refugees, those exact parties which didn't want to give any support to ethnic Hungarians are falling over themselves to help immigrants who share neither our culture, our heritage, or our religion. So for me, it seems as though these politicians are anti-Hungarian, that any other nationality counts more than a Hungarian. Either that, or they want to cut off their nose to spite their face. So the next time you see those little, bigger Hungarian stickers on the back of a car, or on a motorcycle, or printed in a leaflet, I hope you'll remember just some of the things I've spoken about in this video. Trianon. Those 7 letters mean a lot to Hungarians, and even if they don't, the events connected to it are still affecting Hungary today, 95 years on. That's all from me for now. Please subscribe to my channel. I hope I've worked out how to add a button to my videos to allow you to do that. You can follow the Hunbiased webpage, and of course, if you want to spread the word on social media, that would be great. Thanks for watching.